What's up guys, Londrick here. Now I'm back with another edition of Londrick's Fave Fives, and now we're into August. Now Summerslam's right around the way, right around the corner. We're going to do Summerslam related videos, and we're going to kick it off with Fave 5 Summerslam matches. So next one's going to be Summerslam shows. This one's going to be Summerslam matches. Obviously there's been a lot of classic matches over the years of SummerSlam, so some of your favourites are going to be missing from this video, inevitably. That's just how it is. There's only 5 spots and a lot of classic matches are going to be missing from here. So we'll rattle off some honourable mentions and then we'll get into it. So honourable mentions, Brock Lesnar versus CM Punk, SummerSlam 2013. Rock versus Triple H, ladder match, SummerSlam 1998. Bret Hart versus Mr. Perfect, SummerSlam 1991. Bret Hart versus The Undertaker, SummerSlam 1997. Undertaker versus Edge, Hell in a Cell 2008. And SummerSlam 2009, Jeff Hardy versus CM Punk. But of course, we're not here to talk about honourable mentions, we're here to talk about top 5, so let's do it. Now coming in at number 5, SummerSlam 1995, Shawn Michaels versus Ramon for the Intercontinental Championship in a ladder match. Now, this one has a backstory, of course. This, of course, probably one of the most anticipated WWF rematches in history, especially of that era, by far anyway. So, obviously this really goes back to March of 1994 and WrestleMania 10, the first televised ladder match in WWF history. Shawn Michaels versus Ramon for the Intercontinental Championship at Madison Square Garden. One of the all-time great WWE matches ever. I mean, it pretty much, well, not pretty much, it did totally change the business forever. I mean, it set the groundwork for this thing called a ladder match. And if this ladder match thing hadn't been phenomenally successful, who knows? We might not have the ladder matches we have today. I mean, obviously in 2018, guys have taken the stunts that happened in this match and just multiplied them amazingly. I mean, I'll give Hardy's Edge and Christian credit for taking the ladder match to the next level. But Shawn and Razor, particularly Shawn, and that's not a discount Razor, because Razor more than did his job in this match. Shawn Michaels took the ladder match concept and made it, I don't know, just showed how, like, what an exciting match it can be. That you don't have to have just the same old wrestler match every time. You can do things like a ladder match. So, here we are now, summer of 1995. Obviously, I don't want to go into too much detail about the WWF in 1995. I'm pretty sure you've all heard about it and all that. Company's struggling. It's at its lowest point. We're coming into the second biggest pay-per-view of the year, SummerSlam. I mean, WrestleMania 11 was a monumental flop, which we don't need to talk about. And looking at the card, on paper, this was really an uninspiring card. I mean, there was nothing really exciting on the card. There was actually some good matches on the night, but going in, it was like, really? And obviously, bear in mind, this obviously comes off the back of King of the Ring 95, one of the worst pay-per-views ever, and there really just wasn't that exciting match. I mean, originally, it was going to be Shawn Michaels defending the title against Psycho Sid, and that match even had build-up and a match graphic and everything. That was going down. That was playing off the night after WrestleMania where Shawn Michaels turned babyface when Sid attacked him. Sid was Shawn's bodyguard. So that match was going to happen. And that probably would have been a good match. I mean, I'm pretty sure it would have been a good match. I mean, obviously it's Shawn Michaels. And Shawn and Sid had a great match as far as it was 1996. But it just seemed like they needed something. So what they came up with, they came up with the idea of pitting Shawn and Razor in a ladder match against each other again. And it's kind of funny, so it looks like Razor wasn't actually planned to be used on this show at all, which is kind of strange considering Razor was probably one of the big 5 stars of the WWF at the time. So, not sure if there was actually plans for Razor or not. Doesn't seem like it. But then the idea, yeah, let's put Razor and Shawn together. So, but how they got by this is they had a new WWF president, Gorilla Monsoon, and Monsoon's gimmick was he was going to be a fan-friendly president. He was going to give the WWF fans what they wanted. So he pretty much just announced on TV that the WWF fans would rather see something more exciting. So he booked this ladder match between Shawn and Razor for the Intercontinental title, and Sid was going to get his title shot later on. Then all was right in the world. So here we are, 18 months later or whatever it was, Shawn and Razor for the Intercontinental title in the ladder match. Only difference this time, Shawn was the champion this time, Razor was the champion back at WrestleMania 10, and they were both baby faces now. Obviously, Razor had been a face since '93, Shawn had turned face just after WrestleMania 11, and of course they were real life friends as well as part of the clique at the time. So this was going to be a great match, but they had a hell of a lot to live up to with the WrestleMania 10 match. So there wasn't like a feud between two at the time. It was just Shawn was a champion, Razor was a challenger. Of course, Razor had been Intercontinental champion on and off for like 2 years now. I mean, he was either the Intercontinental champion or he was chasing the Intercontinental champion for most of that time. And for me, Razor's probably one of the most underrated Intercontinental champions of all time. I thought Razor Ramon made a great Intercontinental champion. And then the match. I mean, and this match was, for a lot of people prefer this match to the original actually, and that's fine. I've got no problem with that. That's a fair opinion. But I did like the WrestleMania 10 match a bit more. This match was amazing, don't get me wrong, but I just don't think it was as good as the original. I mean, it was different as well. That's what I'll give them credit for. They didn't go out and just have the same match they had at WrestleMania 10. They tried to tell a different story. They did a nice story of Razor beating on Shawn's leg of the ladder and all that. They did a few more spots with the ladder. I mean, Shawn did a backflip off the ladder. That was awesome. He went for his big splash off the ladder, but this time he missed. So there were some great spots in there. Great back and forth match. Shawn and Razor getting momentum at different times. The finish though, they did botch the finish. So did a finish where Shawn was going to jump off the ladder, grab the belt, then he was going to pull it down, and it was going to look spectacular. But what happened was, Shawn set the ladder up, Shawn jumped off the ladder, went to grab the belt, couldn't unbuckle the belt, so Shawn Michaels just fell to the mat like a bit of a tit. So at that point, Razor apparently yelled at Shawn, "Razor's Edge!" So they had to improvise a finish. Razor went for the Razor's Edge. Shawn did a backdrop over the top rope onto the floor, and then he put the ladder underneath the belt. And you could see at this point Shawn was pissed. I mean, for some reason he just couldn't unbuckle the belt again. Then at this point, Shawn's having a full-blown temper tantrum in the middle of the ring. And I think that's always a mark against Shawn Michaels. I mean, Shawn Michaels was not the most mature man back then, and he was prone to stuff like this. I mean, I remember the next year's SummerSlam where he actually snapped at Vader in the middle of the match. So, bit unprofessional. Then eventually Shawn climbs back up the ladder, and eventually he managed to release the buckle and retains the Intercontinental title. An awesome match for me. The best match in the WWF in 1995, yep, I think it was. Still to this day, one of the very least top 5 WWE ladder matches. For me, probably top 3. Nah, maybe. At least singles ladders matches. Anyway, I don't know. I think I done a list on that at some point. But I can't remember where I put this one. But this match was awesome. Again, it's another classic ladder match. And this pretty much saved SummerSlam 1995. Although I did like SummerSlam 1995 a bit, a lot of people didn't. But this match definitely is worthy of being a Fave 5. Clocking in number 4, and we're continuing with the ladder match theme. But this time, we're into the new millennium, in the year 2000. And it's not just a ladder match, it's a tables, ladders and chairs match, oh my. And it doesn't have 2 men, it has 6. And it's for the World Wrestling Federation Tag Team titles. Edge and Christian versus the Hardy Boys versus the Dudley Boys. One of the most celebrated tag team rivalries of all time. For me, at least, probably the best, well, my favourite anyway. Edge and Christian, Hardy's, Dudleys. What a time for the tag team division this was. I don't want to go into too much detail about the backstory of the build-up of the teams and all that, because I have done that in other videos. All I'll say is, to have three teams on the roster, like Edge and Christian, like the Hardy Boys, like the Dudley Boys, at the same time, in the prime, that's just unbelievable, really. I mean, that's the thing about the Attitude Era. It was an awesome era, but they were so lucky in that sense. I mean, just the roster they had, I mean, could you imagine that? I mean, they don't even have one tag team on these guys' level now. Not even one. But to have three? Incredible, absolutely incredible stuff. I mean, all three Hall of Fame level tag teams. All have had, except for maybe Devon, have had some level of success as singles wrestlers over the years. I mean, obviously it's 2018. Matt and Jeff are still in the WWE roster. Edge and Christian retired. Devon retired. Bubba still wrestling in Ring of Honor. Dudley's in the Hall of Fame. Edge is in the Hall of Fame. So this really goes back to No Mercy 1999. Of the Terry Invitational Tournament Final. Edge and Christian versus the Hardy Boys ladder match. Edge and Christian Hardys came in that match as young guys with potential in that match. But they absolutely stole the show that night. I mean, as I was talking in the Razor Shawn section of this video, they laid the groundwork, but I think this match took it to a whole new level. I mean, these were young guys and they just wanted to get noticed. And they were doing whatever it takes, really. All sorts of crazy moves off the ladder match, and fans loved it. Maybe in a way they pigeonholed themselves after that match, because after that match they raised the bar. I think fans expected them to do that every single time, and of course, the reality is, these might act like superhuman people, but they're just human beings like the rest of us. They get hurt. So, then of course they went on. Then the wild card for me in this situation, the Dudley Boys came to WWF in September 1999. Weren't really over at first. I mean, they weren't really booked that well at first, especially with the Bubba Ray stuttering gimmick. That was kind of stupid. Obviously, they came off a super hot run in ECW. Well, they were probably the greatest tag team ever in that promotion. Well, probably, for me, they were. I mean, maybe some people might say the Public Enemy, but I feel like the Dudleys were just so much better than the Public Enemy, to be honest with you. Then, of course, but first few months of Dudleys and WWF was quite rough. They had a so-so feud with the Acolytes, and were just kind of on the roster. Then it was early 2000 where they started getting more aggressive, started putting people through tables, basically being a bit more like they were in ECW, but obviously toned down for a WWF audience. They changed the look from there. Tie-dye look to the more familiar camouflage look, and they started feuding with the Hardy Boys. Had that awesome match at Royal Rumble 2000. Then went on to win the tag team titles at No Way Out 2000. Then of course the Triangle Ladder match at WrestleMania 2000, which I'm sure we'll talk about more at some point, although I have talked about it in stuff like WrestleMania retrospectives and things like that. That match took the No Mercy ladder match and just made it better. Stole the show at WrestleMania 2000. They all went out there and busted their asses. Classic match. So then after the race, they went Edge and Christian won the tag team titles. Then Edge and Christian went on to this phenomenal heel run, benefit of flash photography. They were fantastically obnoxious heels. And of course, on the back of that, the Dudleys started getting respected by WWF fans to turn babyface. Then all teams went on the way for a little while. Edge and Christian went off onto a feud with Too Cool. The Hardys were in the hardcore division for a little bit, then feuded with TNA. The Dudleys had a lengthy rivalry with Road Dogg and X-Pac. Then we go back to summer of 2000. Edge and Christian, the tag team champions for the second time. I think they did a thing where they both hit Jeff Hardy over the head of the concerto. I think they did something. I think they did it at the Dudleys as well, and obviously they did a fight back. They did I think there was a particular segment on SmackDown. Can't remember the circumstance, but I think Edge was. I can't remember, but I do remember both Edge and Christian getting beat up by both the Hardys and the Dudleys, and then this led to Commissioner Foley coming out and declaring this match is going to have tables, ladders, and chairs. Oh my, they were all legal. I mean, the WrestleMania 2000 match had tables as well, so it was essentially a TLC match, but not a name, so this is now officially named Tables, Ladders and Chairs match. So if you ever wonder where this TLC match has come from, this was the original, and the guys had a ton of pressure on themselves. I mean, they had the No Mercy match, they had the WrestleMania 2000 match, and could they top this? And in my opinion, yes. I mean, for me, out of the matches between all these three teams, this is my favourite. Oh, there was no time for no slow spots in this one. This was all just action, action, action all the way through. I mean, just the pace was incredible to watch. I mean, some amazing spots. I particularly loved the full Nelson powerbomb from Bubba on Christian. Jeff Hardy doing the swanton off the ladder through tables. One where Matt went backwards off the ladder over the top through tables. Amazing spot where Bubba was pushed off the ladder over the top rope through 4 tables. I mean, these are professional stuntmen, people. These are just human beings like the rest of us, so you've got to respect the risks these guys took in this match. And for the first time in a ladder match, I mean, this spot's happened quite a few times afterwards. I mean, it was Jeff and Devon were on the ladder. Edge and Christian removed the ladder from their feet, so Jeff and Devon are hanging from the ropes. They're hanging from the belt, sorry. But there's also a funny story I heard in Edge's book where Devon was actually terrified of heights, but unfortunately for him, he kept pigeonholed in this match, and he led Christian on the mat, and you just hear Devon going, "Oh my God, no, Jeff, no, not yet, not yet, not yet." So Devon was terrified, and then, to his credit, he took a phenomenal bump onto the mat. I was like, oh my God, that must have bastard hurt. Then Edge and Christian go on to win the second ladder match of the 3 teams. This match is amazing. I mean, if you like this kind of action, if you like just car crash, chaos style match, this is a match for you. This was unbelievable. 5-star match. One of the best matches of that era for sure. And for me, a definite SummerSlam Fave 5. Now, clocking it number 3, we're going back to 1994. And this time it's not a ladder match, it's a steel cage match for the World Wrestling Federation Championship. Bret Hart versus Owen Hart. Now, in the rivalries videos, I talked a bit about the build-up for this match and this feud in general, but I'll just elaborate on a few points. I won't go into massive detail because I've already spoke about it. This is a long feud. This feud pretty much started Survivor Series 1993 with Owen teasing a heel turn on Bret, which finally came into fruition at Royal Rumble 1994. Then of course the WrestleMania 10 match. See, just like the Shawn and Razor match, this match goes back to WrestleMania 10. Classic opener, one of the best wrestling openers of all time. Owen Hart defeats Bret Hart, but Bret Hart goes on to win the World Wrestling Federation title later that night. So the feud's on. Bret and Owen. Bret's the champion and Owen's chasing him. You had like many house show matches during that time, and of course the whole Owen winning the King of the Ring, becoming the King of Heart, aligning himself with Jim Neidhart. The big family feud, it all came to a head on August 1994 in the United Center in Chicago. At SummerSlam, the Bret and Owen feud got so intense that it could only be resolved inside a steel cage. Now, one of the biggest issues the UF had, of course, was this was just over a month after the steroid trial where Vince got acquitted, so it was in the best interest of the company to keep a squeaky clean image as possible because of the steroid scandal and because of the Ring Boy sex scandal in 1992. Obviously, the WWE's PR took a massive hit at the time. I mean, obviously, there was just so much bad press about the company. So once Vince got acquitted, got the steroid trial out of the way, you just need to keep a squeaky clean image as possible. I mean, the WWF was far more PG than it is now. I mean, obviously it's PG now, but back then, it really was massively kid-friendly. So, blood was a no-no, and then you think, this is a cage match. Kind of have to bleed, don't they? So that was the biggest challenge they had, really. Having what was supposed to be a barbaric cage match, but with no blood. But I think they pulled it off and had an amazing match. I mean, obviously, as I told you, how much I love Bret and Owen rivalry. Just everything about it, really. The story, the matches, all of it. just the characters as well. Owen as a whiny little bitch heel, Bret as a humble baby face, but having to fight his brother to teach him a lesson. And I thought Bret actually cut a really good pre-match promo. There's obviously, I think Bret's biggest criticism is his mic skills, and that's fair. I mean, Bret was not the best on the mic, but sometimes I think he could cut a really good promo. And I think he cut up a really good promo, like asking Owen if he could live with it. He didn't hate Owen, he kind of felt sorry for him, and he was just regretted that I had to come to this and all that. It was a really good promo, you should check it out. It really was a good one. And obviously the whole Hart family was there, all the brothers, all Stu and Helen were there. And Jerry Lawler and Vince were interviewing them while they were constructing the cage. The British Bulldog had come back to the WWF after 2 years away, sitting in the front row. And just a match, unbelievable match. I mean, the psychology and the storytelling in this one was just second to none. I mean, there were so many near escapes, and that's what it was all about. They were trying to escape the cage so many times, and they got stopped so many times. I mean, they just had a beautiful match. I mean, unbelievable storytelling for me, and that's what Bret Hart was all about, the storytelling. So unlike most cage matches where guys are just bleeding like shit and beating the crap out of each other, these didn't do that. But they had a beautiful match nonetheless, and for me anyway, the best regular steel cage match of all time. I mean, there have been Hell in a Cell matches better than this in my opinion, but as far as just a regular cage match, this has to rank up the best one. And a great spot for the time. Bret did a suplex Owen off the top of the cage to the mat. That was incredible. And a great finish with Bret and Owen climbing down. Owen getting his feet caught into the bars. Bret smacking Owen's head off the cage. Owen falling back, but obviously with his foot stuck, he was hanging upside down. And then Bret gets down to retain the World Wrestling Federation title. Then, of course, a massive brawl at the end where Neidhart gets involved. Neidhart and Owen are beating on Bret. All the brothers are trying to get in the cage. Then eventually it's the British Bulldog who's eventually able to get in the cage and save Bret. So, Bret and Owen, SummerSlam 1994, one of the all-time great SummerSlam matches. Now the big ones. Now number 1 and 2. What are number 1 and 2? Well, number 2, we go back 16 years ago. SummerSlam 2002. Unsanctioned fight, Shawn Michaels versus Triple H. This match is unbelievable, it really is. It's such an amazing story as well. So obviously Shawn Michaels won the absolute great of the 1990s. He's an unbelievable in-ring performer, ended up being the World Wrestling Federation champion and all that. But of course, due to a back injury, Shawn Michaels retires in 1998 and is gone for 4 years. Obviously at that time, Shawn's in DX as Triple H. And then when Shawn was gone, Triple H took over DX, and the rest of the say is history. With Shawn gone, Triple H took DX, made it popular, but broke out and then become one of the biggest stars in the history of the business. One of the top guys in the Attitude Era, all that. So here we are, 4 years later. I mean, after many personal struggles with Shawn Michaels, obviously his back injury. There was various times he came back as a commissioner and things like that, but it never really stuck, and that's probably due to Shawn's drug problems. I mean, obviously the famous story of the night, the Raw with Vince's Shane with the Nitro simulcast. Shawn was at that Raw backstage, but he was so wasted and out of it that they were going to use Shawn. They were planning to use Shawn going forward, but Shawn was just so wasted that Vince basically washed his hands of him and just sent him home. I'm not sure if Shawn was ever officially fired or anything like that. I do believe the whole time he was under contract, but I could be wrong about that. But he definitely wasn't used, and of course, Shawn's life in 2002 finally takes a good turn. He becomes a born-again Christian, gets off the drugs, gets off the drink, and really just changes his whole outlook on life. Becomes a much better person, all that. Obviously now he's got a wife and he's got a kid. He's becoming a more mature man. And then Shawn Michaels come back to the WWE, June 2002 I believe, as a member of the NWO, introduced by Kevin Nash. But it came back, Shawn wasn't going to be a wrestler, Shawn was just going to be an on-air talent. But as in wrestling, plans are subject to change, right? So, They were teasing a thing early July where Shawn and Nash were going to ask Triple H to come to the NWO, because Triple H was on SmackDown at the time, NWO was on Raw. Then of course, in early 2002, Kevin Nash gets a quad injury. Let's just get out of the way. Kevin Nash tore his quad. Yeah, just because I know at least one annoying person is going to make a joke comment about Kevin Nash's quad tear. I mean, come on guys, 16 years ago, let's get over it. So obviously Nash getting injured, all NWO plans are thrown out the window. Now, Shawn tells a great story in his book that this idea came to him. I think he was in an airport or something like that. I mean, he got the idea that the Shawn Michaels character is going to be pissed off at Mr. McMahon for getting grounding all the WWE superstars into the ground, getting them hurt, pissed off that his friend was getting injured. And Shawn was going to challenge Vince to a street fight, SummerSlam. So Shawn's going to come back for one match against Vince at SummerSlam. So obviously that didn't happen until 2006. So obviously Vince got the idea. Then he got I like the idea, but if you want to get back in the ring, why don't you get back in the ring with Hunter? I mean, Hunter's better than me. You've got more history with Hunter. So then obviously the idea became Shawn's going to face Triple H at SummerSlam, because obviously they were best friends. They did have a ton of history together. And obviously after Shawn had left, Triple H had become a main event star. So it seemed like a good fit. And I think the storyline for this one was amazing. Well, not amazing, but really, really good. And so there was a big bidding war between Raw and SmackDown to get Triple H with vengeance. And then Shawn Michaels had a talk with Triple H, convinced Triple H to jump over to Raw. Then the next night, Eric Bischoff had assigned Shawn Michaels to be Triple H's manager, but for some reason Shawn seemed a bit pissed off about that, and then Triple H said he had another idea. Later on in the night, Shawn Michaels came out in all DX gear, DX music, and obviously Triple H is doing the promo. Ooh, let's get ready to suck it! Kicks Shawn Michaels, hits a pedigree and walks off like, whoa. So Triple H turned back heel after coming back to the company in 2002 as a babyface. The next night, they did a thing where somebody smashed Shawn Michaels' head through a car window. I mean, it was one of those ones where we knew it was going to be Triple H, but obviously in wrestling, announcers and people have to act dumb to the fact. So obviously Triple H obviously said he didn't do it. Then the next night on Raw, he was on not next week on Raw, sorry. He was on a show-long quest to find out who did it. He was questioning various guys, and then Shawn Michaels showed the CCTV footage where they unblurred the footage, put it up close and real. Yeah, it was Triple H all along. Triple H had done it. Then Triple H said he did it to prove a point that Shawn's weak, that Shawn's vulnerable. And then Shawn Michaels throws out the challenge. He said he's going to be 100% by, say, SummerSlam. And that was like, whoa! Shawn Michaels is coming back. I mean, that was a big deal at the time. Like, a really, really big deal. I mean, I think fans were so, just happy to see Shawn back in the ring. That obviously the build-up went from there. And the funny thing is, looking back now, obviously, at the time, you might not realise, expectations were relatively low-key. I mean, obviously, Shawn had the big back injury, so... And obviously, Shawn was older and that, he'd been out the ring for 4 years, so it was we weren't exactly expecting the showstopper, the Shawn Michaels of old. I think we thought, yeah, it'll be an entertaining match, it'll work around Shawn's limitations, and it'll be cool, it'll be entertaining. But what we got was something else. So obviously, an unsanctioned fight. Eric Bischoff would not sanction this match, so officially the match wouldn't happen, but of course it would. And then, yeah, this match is unbelievable. I think the storytelling in this match is absolutely incredible. Triple H was a despicable piece of shit in this match as well. I mean, a true heel. And there was absolutely nothing to like about Triple H in this match. He was a complete arsehole, a complete dickhead. Just, kind of a bit like Tommaso Ciampa now. The guy was just a fucking scumbag. There was nothing to like about him. So Triple H was viciously attacking Shawn Michaels' back and all that. Shawn was selling the shit out of it, and it was just perfect. And I'll give credit to the guys. The psychology was perfect in this one. Earl Hebner's reactions and stuff was amazing, because the officially Earl Hebner couldn't do anything about it, but morally he was really struggling watching Triple H beat up Shawn Michaels, so he's trying to get him to tone it down and shit. Then eventually, and I'll give the guys the credit for timing this perfect, Shawn sold for just the right amount of time, and then he made his comeback. He got his big opening when he did a super kick onto the chair in Triple H's face. And then Triple H started bleeding, and then obviously after that we get about 10 minutes more incredible action as well. Shawn Michaels, it was like he'd never been away. I mean, it's pretty incredible, really, because I honestly don't think anyone could have pulled that off more than Shawn Michaels, to be gone for that long length of time, come back, have a 5-star match on a major pay-per-view like SummerSlam. I just cannot see anyone else pulling that off. I mean, it's probably one of the reasons why I rate Shawn Michaels as the best in-ring performer ever. Stuff like, he did an elbow drop off the ladder. I mean, come on, this guy's just come off a broken back and he's doing that. I think he did a thing where he did a splash off the top rope on the outside through a table. So, unbelievably exciting match. And of course, the fairy tale ending, Shawn Michaels gets the win over Triple H. Just a phenomenal match on an incredible SummerSlam. And, well, you know, I'm not going to beat around the bush. SummerSlam 2002's on the favourite SummerSlams list. I mean, we'd quite have a rather insulting list if it wasn't, really, would it? But where's it going to be? We'll find out next week. Then the post-match, Triple H hit Shawn Michaels over the back of a sledgehammer, so it looks like, oh, fuck, no. Shawn Michaels may have won, but Triple H may have just crippled Shawn Michaels. And again, Triple H, a complete scumbag, complete piece of shit, laughing about it and all that, and it was like, no, you son of a bitch, you unbelievable son of a bitch. You just had to have the last word, didn't you? It looked like maybe Shawn was crippled, but of course he wasn't. I mean, he came back for the 5 years in the Elimination Chamber, which we might talk about another time. But if you haven't seen this match, you've got to watch it. I mean, this is one of the best SummerSlam matches of all time. One of Triple H's best matches. Hell, one of Shawn's best matches. And of course, instead of just being a one-off and done, it led to an incredible 8-year run for Shawn Michaels, which ended in 2010. So, coming in number 2, Shawn and Triple H at SummerSlam 2002. And in the least surprising news ever, coming in at number 1, Bret the Hitman Hart, British Bulldog, Intercontinental title, SummerSlam 1992. I mean, if people know me, they know this is not only my favourite SummerSlam match of all time, this is my favourite match of all time, period. I mean, I could go into big detail about it, but I'll just briefly explain. 5-year-old, SummerSlam 2002, started watching wrestling in about May of I fucked that up. Not 2002, 1992. Excuse me. I don't script these videos, so if I mess up, I just leave them in, basically. So, we're in 1992, 5-year-old, a brand new WWF fan. I think I started watching the product in about May of 1992. Obviously, back then, there wasn't a pay-per-view every month, so the first ever pay-per-view I watched on TV was SummerSlam 1992, and this was a main event, and it was in England. So, and obviously for that reason, really, it is my favourite match of all time. But of course, it was an amazing match, which I'll get into. So obviously, I think I've explained this in other videos, so I don't want to go into big detail. But of course, 1992, with the WWF started rapidly declining in popularity in the US, but here in Europe and the UK, popularity of the WWF in 91, 92 was unbelievable, because obviously to us it was pretty much a new product. I mean, UK fans had been raised on classic British wrestling, like from the 50s to the mid-80s world of sport, but this was a totally different product. This was colourful characters, this was huge bodies, this was over-the-top personalities. So in the early 90s, the WWF was massive in the UK, it really was, especially in 1992, so Vince decided to capitalise on that popularity in a major way by holding SummerSlam at Wembley Stadium in an 80,000 seat stadium, and they sold out. And they sold out quickly as well. Now, original plans for obviously, so Bret knew for some time that he was likely dropping the Intercontinental title at SummerSlam. And the original idea he had, because there was a debate, it was SummerSlam was either going to be in Washington DC or it was going to be in Wembley Stadium. And obviously Bret and Shawn had been feuding for a bit in 1992. Shawn was the up and coming heel, so if SummerSlam was going to be in Washington DC, we were going to get Bret Hart versus Shawn Michaels in a ladder match for the Intercontinental title, and Shawn was going to win the Intercontinental title, but as it was in Wembley, Bret came up with a new idea. Why doesn't he face Davey Boy Smith, the British Bulldog, at SummerSlam, losing the Intercontinental title to him, and then Davey could drop the title to Shawn at a later date? And obviously the decision was made to go to SummerSlam in Wembley, to go with Bret Hart and the British Bulldog. It was obviously the British Bulldog, a massive, massive star in the UK. National hero, really, I mean, at the time. And probably still is, probably the most popular British wrestler of all time. I mean, even to this day, Davey Boy Smith's name carries a lot of weight in England. And Bret Hart himself was hugely over here at the time. Or maybe not as much as Smith, but he was pretty damn over. So this was hugely anticipated match. Obviously, for the World Wrestling Federation title, you had Ultimate Warrior and Macho Man. And to the US audience, that was what was billed as the main event. But of course, this being in the UK, nothing else could have gone on last, really. So, and it was, I think Bret even told Vince, "You put me and Davey on last, nothing's going to top us." Then they had a match at a TV tape in July, which was actually released on the unreleased DVD last year. And Bret's really selling this match. He thinks the match was shit and all that, and the time was off. But I saw this match for the first time last year, and I thought, yeah, this was actually alright. I mean, obviously it wasn't as good as a SummerSlam match, but it was a pretty good trial run anyway. And obviously, so yeah. Then obviously the story that they brought out was the family feud, because obviously in real life, Bret and Davey were brother-in-laws. Davey was married to Bret's sister Diana, which I have to be honest, until this match, until this rivalry, I don't think that was ever acknowledged, ever, until like 1992, because obviously both Bret and Davey had been in the company for a while at the same time, especially in the 80s when the Hart Foundation feuded for the British Bulldogs. I'm pretty certain it was never ever acknowledged then. I'm pretty sure it wasn't. If it was, someone could correct me. Then obviously Davey came back as a babyface in the late 90s, and throughout then I still think then Bret and Davey weren't acknowledged as brothers-in-laws until this match. So the whole story was the family were conflicted. Diana was in the middle, because obviously Bret's a brother, Davey's a husband. So obviously she was going through a hard time and all that. And obviously, yeah, because obviously Bret was a champion, Davey wanted to be the champion. And it was one of those ones, I don't want to get into detail about, I don't really want to shit on Davey, but Davey wasn't in the best shape at the time. Davey had a drug problem, and of course, according to Bret, in the weeks building up this, he was back home in Florida smoking crack with Jim Neidhart for weeks. And when he got to England, he was now terrified about sticking the joint out. So Bret had really been the one. He went over the match with Davey over and over again the night before, making Davey memorise every spot and then repeating it back to him. So Bret was not happy with this. I mean, Bret had been planning this match out for months, and Davey not in the best of shape. So Bret was furious about this. And then obviously the match happens, and then I think it was like a very early spot. Apparently Davey goes to Bret, goes, "Bret, I'm fucked, Bret, I can't remember anything." So then Davey blanks out and just forgets the match. So at that point, it's entirely up to Bret to carry the match, carry Davey boy through this match. And that's what he did. I mean, obviously the atmosphere was just insane. I mean, obviously you hear the pop of the Davey boy's entrance, incredible. Such a powerful entrance that was when he comes down with Lennox Lewis, who of course another British star, I think he was one of the world boxing champions at the time. Huge star coming down with British Bulldog, holding the Union Jack in Wembley. Whoa. Then Bret's entrance, another great entrance. And just the match. I watched this match actually because I watched SummerSlam 1992 on Monday. Whoa, this match is unbelievable. I mean, it's coming up 26 years now, and that's incredible. To think how long ago this match was, and just the lasting impact. I mean, here we are, over 25 years later, and it's still an amazing match. And actually until last month, Extreme Rules 2018, was the only Intercontinental title match to ever go on last on a WWE pay-per-view, which is just an amazing stat, really, to be fair, when you think about it. It took 28 years for another Intercontinental title match to ever go on last. And this match, just unreal. Storytelling, incredible. Psychology, just a magnificent performance. To give Davey Boy's credit, even though he wasn't in the best of shape, he pulled it off. I mean, there was a couple of missed spots here and there, but especially one where Bret's going over the top rope, the outside. Davey's supposed to catch him, but Davey kind of forgets to catch him, so Bret has to improvise and does kind of like a backwards bulldog onto the floor on him. So, and there was another one where Davey lifted Bret up. He was supposed to place him on the top rope for the superplex, but Davey kind of slipped a little bit and whacked Bret on the top turnbuckle like really, really hard. I mean, he could have really, really hurt Bret doing that. And just the big moves. Obviously, this was back in the days before kick-out finishes was a big thing and all that. So to see Davey get out the sharpshooter, get the rope and the sharpshooter, that was a sight to see, because that hadn't happened before. I mean, generally Bret puts the sharpshooter on, motherfucker submits, and that's it. And then Bret kicked out of Davey Boy's power slam, which again, back then, this is before like a John Cena AJ Styles match where they're kicking out of their super AAs and Styles clashes, phenomenal forearms and stuff like that. So this was way before then. So kicking out of a finisher was a big deal in 1992. And obviously went to an amazing climax. Davey throws Bret in the ropes. Bret goes to sunset flip. Davey drops to his knees, hooks Bret's legs. 1, 2, 3. The pop when Davey Boy won that match was just that was insane. An insane pop from the Wembley crowd. Just unbelievable moment. And then Davey Boy was a new Intercontinental Champion. And it was an incredible moment to cap off a huge night for the company. It's a beautiful match. I mean, to this day, just the childhood memories of this match stay with me all these years later. And it's one of those things I wonder, if this match wasn't a big success and this match wasn't so great, would I have stayed a wrestling fan for long? I don't know. But I do think this is the match that really hooked me into becoming a wrestling fan for life. I really do. I mean, it's just one of those things, yeah. I mean, what if I stopped being a wrestling fan when I was a kid? I don't know. I really don't know. So this match is always special to me. I mean, it really is. I love this match. I try to watch this match at least once every year. I mean, around the summertime, I usually watch some old SummerSlams and all that, which I am actually currently doing at the moment. At the moment, I'm in the middle of watching SummerSlam 2001. But yeah, there's not much more I can say about this match. This is one of my favourite matches ever. And that's a wrap for this video, guys. So, like I say, next week I'll be doing Fave 5 SummerSlam shows. And until next time, guys, peace.